Good morning, karibu sana. This is indeed Power Breakfast right here on Citizen TV, and it's that time when we take a look at the headlines this morning. And to help us do that this morning, we have Vincent Kimoso, policy analyst, and Peter Kaluma, member of parliament from Homa Bay. Karibu sana. Very good morning, and very interesting and diverse headlines this morning. One has to do with corruption on the Standard, the other one still to do with corruption, but on a different platform. On the Daily Nation, a Rio probe, sports chiefs face jail for 88 million shillings theft. Now, it's been found out that top officials at the Ministry of Sports embezzled money meant for air tickets and diverted it to personal accounts. The tribunal also raises queries over whereabouts of 126 million sent to athletes by kit sponsors Nike annually. On the Standard, Afia House cover-up charge enrages MPs. Now, this is a very interesting twist because it has to do with a committee of the National Assembly. And we've been discussing this over and over the past few weeks about how effective these committees are, whether or not they are effective, and we'll be coming to that soon. But let's start off with something interesting, a bit positive, and this is on page 4 of the Standard, and it's the kind of applause that CS for Education Fred Matiang'i continues to receive in his handling of the entire education docket, including the exams. And on page 4 of the Standard, we have this story that a girl has named a newborn after Matiang'i. A KCSE candidate gave birth to twins in Likuyani sub-county and named one of them after Education Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i. Now, of course, she becomes the third candidate to deliver safely while sitting exams in Kakamega County and the second in Likuyani constituency. Now, that's the kind of applause that Dr. Fred Matiang'i is receiving, continues to receive. The same you can actually see on the cartoon on the same paper, page 14 of the Standard, if you've seen the cartoon. This is Fred Matiang'i appearing to, there's a huge crowd behind him, appearing to applaud him, holding placards praising the CS, and he's trying to tell them, guys, please, I've got some assignments to finish. The placards are reading, go Fred, go, Matiang'i for 2017. If Matiang'i can do it, we can all do it. Matiang'i for Prezo, all these things. Very interesting. And the kind of applause that you're seeing that Dr. Fred Matiang'i received, of course, it is well-deserved, don't you think, Bwana?
Yes, Fred Matiang'i is serving well. You know, of these cabinet secretaries, all you hear from them is corruption under their docket, corruption under their watch. But this is a cabinet secretary who took over a very sensitive ministry. And if you remember the challenges with his predecessor, people were like, why is Kaimenyi not able to perform? Yet he was, you know, in charge of deputy vice chancellor. I remember academic affairs at the University of Nairobi. How come it cannot click for him? Now, Matiang'i went in, and there were very many challenges. One was with rigging. And I can tell you it is not a small thing when some people rig. Fred, you had a situation where you get in a single school over 200 A's. Yes. In a situation where candidates are barely 300. You remember our years. Yes. If you were a B+ student, it was known worldwide. In fact, you were known nationally to be sharp. Now you get 200 getting A's. Others, particularly those ones who do not know how to steal, have a problem, because then you cannot go into the university you've applied for. You cannot be admitted for the course you've trained for. I have so many students, I can tell you, from Homa Bay Town constituency, who at my level, based on their performance, would have gone into law, engineering, medicine, this, you know, so-called, you know, bigger courses at the University of Nairobi and others. They did not get admitted to the universities they applied to. They ended up in, you know, universities, for one, they never applied for. Into courses, they do not know what, you know, those courses are about. Now, that is the iniquity of exam rigging. So when you have Fred Matiang'i, you know, coming and saying there will be never rigging, people are happy. And I can tell you, the young moms or new moms, you know, naming their children after Matiang'i are not doing it for the sake of it. You know, our mothers literally go into coma when they deliver. So if you come out of coma and the name you remember to give on to your child is Matiang'i, it is positive. And let me tell people that naming a child Kimosop from a religious perspective will tell you is very crucial. If you name your child Rasta or Wanugu, there are some traits they have. I'm happy, Fred, to be from you know, the western part of the country, where you have the freedom not just to name your child after, you know, your father or mother and downward, but and I can tell you, I was discussing with my, you know, beloved, you know, spouse, you know, the other day, and if God were to bless us with a child, we would name, if the child were to be a boy, Freddy Limuli.
Oh, really?
Because when when we name children in the western part of the country, there is a moral, you know, value. There is a value attribute. There is the kind of, you know, character we want in the child. So you get our children named after Mwai Kibaki, several of them. You get our children named after Kenneth Matiba, particularly around 1991. So many of them. You have Charles Rovia, you have Jomo Kenyatta, you have Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, you have Barack Obama, and so you see this mom from Likuyani saying, you know, Fred Matiang'i. I wanted to tell Fred to really, you know, move forward. There are instances in which people believe that, you know, we are, you know, issuing out so many rules in the education sector. But really, those ones which are important.
It was necessary.
It was necessary. Yes. Let us now firm up the sector so that we can go into other frontiers.
And of course, Bonakimo Sopa, it appears that there was a trust from Kenyans really to actually see someone in government perform, and because we've just been seeing non-performers, so when one shows up,
first let me for two things. Let me start by applauding you. I think you're doing a very good job in the sense that as in a member of parliament from whom I do not, that's not light. So tell your national television that they'll name their child after you. I think even your boss needs to note this is commendable. I think for me, I will look at I'm happy you started with Kaluma. Why? Because you've had him. He is a member of parliament for the Orange Democratic Movement. That's the ticket he's in, and he's actually come out clearly to applaud what Matiang'i is doing under Jubilee administration. If you've noticed, he's been very consistent on saying this is so. That is what the opposition, pointing out what is right, and actually also having the integrity and the courage to say this is the right thing. We therefore applaud you in government. I think for me, the Bible says in the book of I think the 1 Corinthians, that says, let three things remain: faith, love, and hope. What people want is hope. The reason why Barack Obama inspired the attention of the world in 2008 is that he presented hope. The minorities and the challenges they had faced across the time, people would identify that if somebody who has had a background of like the one of Barack Obama can become the president of the United States, we also, and you can actually see from the cartoon that if Matiang'i can do it, we also can do it. What I'm pointing out is that there is a hunger and a thirst for leadership in the country, and leadership is not necessarily just about the positions. John Maxwell talks about the 4 levels of leadership. The position, you are appointed into a position. Number 2, the permission, you work well with people. Number 3, you produce and make a difference. Then number 4, you impact people and you build legacies. And then finally, you create the best. So what we are seeing here is he has been able to inject hope and confidence. Because how much money are we spending annually in the education sector? Close to, I think, a quarter of our national budget goes to the education sector. Somebody needs to show results out of this. Then finally is that some things they have what you call sanctity. For example, a certificate, Fred. You proudly show people, this is my certificate. So what happens if we water down the integrity and the value of a certificate through exam rigging and cheating? So that's sanity. And I think I also want to use this platform to commend that since it is not only Matiang'i who is doing it, we have Professor Magoa, who is the chair of the Kenya National Examination Council, and he spoke confidently that actually there will be no rigging, and you can see, there will be no cheating, and you can see results. So it means our institutions that actually currently we are complaining about, all we want is stronger leadership, the kind that we are seeing from Matiang'i. Actually, it gives me hope, for example, through, for example, an institution like EACC that has never stabilized since it was established. It means if the day we will get a Matiang'i, as in such an institution, we will have delivery.
Yes.
What is the name? Former Speaker of the National Assembly, Fred Matiang'i, not Fred Matiang'i, Kenneth Marende. When the country was thirsting and hungering for leadership, when he rose up to the national challenge, what happened? The nation was inspired, but irrespective of their political affiliation. So leadership.
There are very few instances in our history that we can compare to what is happening in the education sector. Probably Bwana Michuki, what he did in the transport sector. But there is also a risk that when someone like Matiang'i comes up and he's being seen to be doing so well in one ministry, then you move him to a different ministry.
What I would advise Fred Matiang'i is that I've worked with him is to institutionalize the reforms, because what Michuki did not achieve after the Michuki rules was institutionalizing those things to become the norm. Because the challenge is we say we need a Michuki. We appreciate what Michuki did and we commend him and God bless him and his legacy, but what we want is how do we ensure that that is institutionalized so that it is not about just the individual, it now becomes a systems issue. If you do that, then Matiang'i will have left a great legacy.
And of course there's still time to, because we are yet to see the results. The exams are still on. The KCPE concluded 2 weeks ago. KCSE is only in its second week. There's still at least 2 more weeks to continue. The marking is yet to start. On page 4 of the Standard, of course, is issued a promise, is assured parents, teachers and all those involved in the education sector that whatever rules have been applied up to this time in terms of the examination administration will continue even into the marking. But there's a risk, because if something happens between now and when the results come out, then it waters down everything.
No, not necessarily. You know, the examination process is a system. It's a very long system. It comes from, you know, how we teach our students down to how we set exams, and then how we administer the examination, and of course how we, we mark and grade. Now, the problem we've had is that with our examination system, it has been a problem from down there upwards. And this is why I think we need to have a holistic approach at this thing. And by the way, Matiang'i has done very well. If you go to a school like Alliance, these so-called national schools, you begin seeing inequities if you are talking about how you process Kenyans for exams, because you will have in something like a subject like English alone, you have a teacher for grammar, you have a teacher for composition, you have a teacher for comprehension, you'll have a teacher for poems and literature. Then of course you have a teacher supervising all the teachers. So in one class you have how many teachers? 5
for one subject,
teaching one subject. You go to several schools in Homa Bay town constituency, in so many mixed day schools, you have one TSC employed teacher. The others are of course teachers being paid by the board of management, parent teachers association, not teachers but untrained individuals willing to step in to teach. And then you have a situation where students of Alliance and others are doing the same examination with those students in day schools in Homa Bay town constituency, and they are expected to of course perform equally. Now a problem begins there. And then when you come to setting of exams, something Matiang'i told us which the nation does not know is that we've had a case where a set of people are setting exams for a decade. And of course this set of people even go into schools purporting to be giving, others are teachers, others are giving what they call tuitions in their private establishments or on private arrangement with public and private institutions. So that exams are very predictable. He can tell you, I know in the last 2 years the type of questions I've set are these. And you'd essentially go into the streets and you have a particular institution saying we can begin to forecast on what will be the exam. And when you see what they have tested in their continuous assessment tests, it is word for word what then comes out in the national exams. Now that also engenders inequity. Then we must have proper guidelines for marking. Now if we can achieve all that, then we have a situation where education truly makes us equal and us no equal, because the idea of education is that a Kaluma can come from the village of Ndiru where he came from and sit with Kimosop at the same level. Sit with, you know, the son of the Prime Minister, the son of the President on the same table of national governance. That is the idea about it. But if you make conditions so difficult for others, it won't move. So my idea is that in the area of examination, we needed a firm hand from the top, and this is what I've always said here. You may have, you know, Kenya National Examination Council and others, but if you lack a firm leadership, giving, you know, that Kenya National Examination leadership the confidence that you do the right thing and bind you, it won't work. And by the way,
finally, it's true what Kaluma says.
You know that's the beauty of when you have a conversation on principle. I fully agree. But there I chair a secondary school. I started in February in my village. It's called Triandonin Mixed Secondary School, and I can tell you, when we got in there and they gave me that responsibility, I told them we will do 3 things. And when the signal goes from the top, everything has a way of aligning themselves. They actually said we will do our strategic plan, launch it. We will buy a bus because we are too much into the interior. We will build a library, and we also want to get a laboratory, because we said you cannot be testing sciences when you don't have the means. So I just want to appreciate that this challenge that Kaluma has pointed out. For us, we have a shortage, Kaluma, of 11 teachers. We have 402 students, and we only have 9 TSC teachers. So I actually went to TSC, and I'm still waiting for them to imagine 11 teachers, and the rest, the burden is being borne by them. So you can actually feel what the impact of when we get things right. Now, my recommendation, this is because it's good to, I said the last time we have this conversation, is that I would want, come December, during the president, usually after the independence celebration, he has a function at State House to commend people who have received and served this country with distinction. I think for me, we need to appreciate and reward Matiang'i, irrespective of what happens after. Because when we reward effort, what happens? People start, you send the signal that I, as the president, appreciate what you're doing. For example, if you look at how the president is campaigning for Amina Mohammed, it tells you very clearly that he believes that Amina has what it takes to become the chair of the AU. Now, if that is compounded together with our appreciating what Matiang'i is doing, it sends a message to the cabinet that results and delivery is what is appreciated. Then also, if people are not performing, he should also be shown the door.
And of course, what this story tells us is that even the country and the general public understands that it comes from the top. Leadership comes from the top. There's NEC, there's everyone else, but Matiang'i takes the ultimate praise when things go right. So even in other sectors of governance, the top really matters. But now, hold that thought, because I'm being rushed. We need to move on to another segment right now. And when we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to comment on that as we move on to another story. Of course, we still have to discuss the Afia House parliamentary cover-up charge. Now cover-up goes to Parliament, which is something unheard of before today. We could discuss what happened between Miguna and Esther Passari here in Nairobi. We could. No promises. But let's now join my colleague Willis Waburu in our other studio for something else.